In this video, I'm going to show you the steps that you're going to use to create a grid on your picture. So make sure that your picture is sitting like this and that it's not turned sideways. Whenever you make your marks and your measurements, you want to be very precise. If you're not precise, then your grid will not end up looking like squares, and you really want to have squares. So the first thing that you're going to do with your ruler is line it up at the top of your page. So I'm going to put the 0 mark, which is this first long one, at the edge of my paper. And I'm going to measure down 1 inch and just put a mark. I'm going to go to this side and make sure you line up 0 on the edge of your paper. Go down 1 inch, make a mark. Now you're going to line up your ruler on those marks. And it's important that you're doing all this with a pencil, because if you mess up, you can just erase and you don't have to start all over with a new page. So I'm going to draw a line that's connecting my marks. That was 1 inch from the top of my paper. I'm going to do that same process, but now from the bottom of my paper. So I'm measuring on this side 1 inch from the bottom. Make a mark. And scoot over to this side. Make sure you are lining it up with 0 and not the edge of the ruler like this. Start with the 0 mark. 1 inch from the bottom. I'm going to draw that line across the bottom, lining up my marks with a pencil. Whoa. Hold your ruler still. Okay. Now, so this is what you should have so far. I marked off 1 inch from the top and 1 inch from the bottom. Now from the sides, I'm going to mark off 3/4 of an inch. Okay, so 3/4 of an inch, if you're not sure where that is, remember that in the middle here, this long line, that's half. So if I want 3/4, it's going to be this one right here. So I'm going to line up 0 with the left edge of my paper. I'm going to make a mark at 3/4. A little mark. I'm going to scoot down towards the bottom of my paper and do the same thing. 3/4 of an inch from the edge. Draw the line to connect those two marks. Same process from the right side of your paper. I'm going to line up 0 with the edge of my paper. I'm going to measure in from the right side 3/4. I'm going to make a mark. Scoot down closer to the bottom. 3/4 of an inch from the side. Draw a line down the side to connect those two marks. Be really careful that you're lining it up well. If it's off just a little bit, it's going to affect it a lot more than you think. Okay. So, I've just created a frame around my paper. 1 inch down from the top, 1 inch up from the bottom, 3/4 in from the sides. The next step is going to be, I'm going to put my ruler around just the frame. So like I'm going to start right here and go this way and then go up. And I'm going to make a mark every 1/2 inch. So I'll start with a 1/2 and then mark 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, and so on. Okay, this will be the lines that I use to make the actual grid and put squares all over the paper. Alright, so I'm starting with 0 at the edge of my frame. Okay, I'm going to make a mark on every 1/2 inch. Let's get that down a little bit. Okay, so I'm making a mark 1/2, 1, 1.5, 2. You want to keep your ruler still and not let it slide back and forth whenever you make these marks, because then the measurement won't really be a 1/2 inch if your ruler's moving around. And whenever we put that frame around your picture, it's okay if like the top of these trees got cut off. That's not going to take away from the score of your project. Now if that bothers you, because that part wouldn't end up being drawn on the poster, so if it was like a main part of the picture, if it bothers you, then you might want to pick a different picture, or if there was one that you picked on the computer, you can go back and resize it. But it will be okay if like a little bit gets cut off. It doesn't matter. Okay, so there's my marks along the bottom. So I'm going to turn my paper and I do the same thing, starting with 0 at the edge of the frame, and I'm going to mark every 1/2 inch. Again, don't let your ruler move. Okay. Now, across the top, 0 on the edge of the frame. You also want to make sure that it's lined up with the 7 over there. Okay. Okay, now let's see. Remember I started at the bottom, I had 0 down here, so I'm going to do that the same way over here on the left side. Still every 1/2 inch. Okay. So, let's zoom out. I went around my frame and I marked every 1/2 inch. Now I'm going to start connecting those grid lines with long lines to start making all the squares. Now I'm not going to video me doing the whole thing because it takes a while, but I'll show you what it looks like to get started. I guess I could go across the top here. Okay, so I'm going to hold my ruler horizontal and I'm going to find those first marks from the top. You line them up, hold your ruler really still, and start on the frame and draw all the way across to that other line. Now, whenever you do that, if it looks crooked, that's not a good sign. I would go back and redo my half marks. You want it to look straight and even. So I would just move down to the next line, draw it all the way across. They should look very equal. Okay. I'll do some of the vertical ones too. So I would keep on going all the way down this page, drawing these horizontal lines. And then you can start lining up the ones for the sides. Doesn't fit in my camera, but so you see that it will start making squares. Hopefully all of your squares are very close to the same size. Across the bottom, you'll label A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way across. So like you're labeling the actual squares instead of the grid lines. Up the side, you'll label the squares 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up. If you have any questions, please come ask.